How's everyone today? Good? You survive all those earthquakes we had recently? I had what was that? That was on Monday night or Tuesday night, right? Tuesday? Which night? Wednesday? No, it wasn't. Today's Thursday, so I think it was Monday night. Wednesday? Oh. No. I'm saying when we had like dozens of earthquakes. Monday night, yeah, okay. So I had some foreign friends who have only lived in Taiwan for less than a year, and they sent me a message and they said, "What's going on?" They said, "Is this normal?" I said, "No, actually it's not normal," but I said, "Don't worry about it too much." Because even for me, I grew up in Taiwan, and I used to, when I was a child, I lived in Hualien. But even for me, I think that's the most earthquakes I've ever seen in a row. I do remember when I was younger, when I was a little kid in Hualien, there was one night in particular where we had back-to-back earthquakes, just one after the next. But this was even more, I felt like. I felt like this was more. So, yeah, so anyhow, I think we had, over 100 earthquakes, and a lot of them were in the 4 or 5 range. But anyhow, it's one of those things, it's funny because after the first few, you're just like, okay, whatever, who cares? And then it's still a little bit, makes you feel a little bit nervous, but that's it. Fortunately, I told my foreign friends, they were actually Americans, I said, just be thankful that you live in a country where they're well prepared and the buildings are pretty safe, because there's many other countries where I'd be sleeping out in the park, I think. But yeah, Taiwan's pretty good. Okay, good. So anyhow, I thought we would start today with an earthquake story or earthquake-related story. It says, students at Quake app wins praise. Okay, this is on the front page of the Taipei Times today. Now, as I said before, I know in Taiwan everyone likes to say APP, but you don't say APP. If you go to America and you say, I like this APP, they'll be like, what are you talking about? You have to say app, because what does app stand for? Application, yeah. So it's basically application. It's like a program for your smartphone or your computer, usually more for your phone. But yeah, it's an application. So we just shorten that word to the word app. Okay, so why don't we say it together? Application. Application. App. App. Now I know, when you're outside, I'm sure you still have to say APP. If you say app, nobody will know what you're talking about in Taiwan. But if you're ever talking to a foreigner or English speaker, just use the word app, because then they'll know what you're talking about. So here it's a Quake app. Now, of course, Quake is short for the word earthquake, but often we say Quake just for short. So why don't we say that too? Quake. Quake. Now, quake can also mean other normal, has a slightly more normal meaning. If someone is shaking, not the ground, but just someone shaking. Sometimes we could say he was quaking in fear. Okay, quaking in fear. That's an expression we hear quite a bit. But quaking means just to shake, just like when we have an earthquake, everything shakes. So we could actually describe a person as quaking, although this word tends to get used if someone's very fearful, if they're very scared. We say he was quaking. We wouldn't say he was quaking in excitement. We would maybe say he was shaking in excitement, but not quaking. So quake, it can be used in other ways, but it's more commonly used for earthquake. Okay, so let's look at this article. It says, a high school student who designed an app that sends earthquake alerts more readily than the Central Weather Administration is facing bandwidth issues after a surge in downloads as wary Taiwanese endure aftershocks from a major quake on April 3. Okay, so this is a high school student who designed an app, he made this, that sends earthquake alerts. Now, you know what an alert is, right? It can be a 动词 or 名词. I'm sure that the other night, some of you maybe received earthquake alerts on your phone. And I did too. And it's always kind of interesting that they're able to do that now. So an alert, we can say he alerted him to the danger, or I received an alert, which would be more of a noun, means. So why don't we say that word together? Alert. Alert. Okay, so it sends earthquake alerts. Here it's a noun. More readily. Okay, if you say to do something readily, what does that mean? Yeah, easily, more easily, more readily. So you could say this computer helps me to do my business more readily, more easily, it's more ably. Sometimes I guess we could say that A-B-L-Y, ably. He's very able. He's very, so ready, readily, able, ably, easily. It's all that same idea. So why don't we say together, readily? Readily. Okay, so it's able to do this more readily, more easily, maybe has better capability, more ability than the Central Weather Bureau, the Qishangju. This new app, the student is facing bandwidth issues, okay? So this is a word, it's pretty common, but I don't know if we've talked about it. What is bandwidth? It's very technical. When we talk about bandwidth, we're talking about how much, how do we say this? How much room we have on a certain frequency or, channel. So I'll tell you where this originally was used for radio messages, 广播. So you say bandwidth, because, on a radio station, you talk about a radio band, it's like a radio channel. So if you have too many radio stations in the same space, then it becomes, there's no bandwidth left. It's filled up. I don't know if you remember about 20 years ago, maybe 20, 30 years ago, Taiwan had a problem with lots of illegal radio stations, right? There were these AM stations and FM stations that were illegal, weifa, and they would fill up the bandwidth. So sometimes you were trying to listen to your radio station, and you would hear all these illegal radio stations coming on top of it. So we said it interfered with the bandwidth, or it reduced the bandwidth. But here, of course, today when we talk about bandwidth, we're talking more about how much. What's a good word for this? I know I'm missing a word, but basically, when you download something on the internet, you need bandwidth. You need to be able to. Does everybody know what I'm talking about? What? Yeah, I guess that's it. Let's say I have a popular website or a popular app, and everyone is trying to download it, and there's too many people trying to download it, and they can't download it anymore because everyone's on there, right? That means you don't have enough bandwidth. It's like you don't have enough power going through your channel. So anyhow, but I will say this word sometimes gets used in a personal sense. For example, let's say you're very busy. Let's say you've got many jobs going on. You're doing a lot of work, right? And your friend comes to you and says, hey, can you help me with this job? I have something I need you to help me with. And you say, I'm really sorry. I would love to help you, but right now I don't have the bandwidth to help you. I don't have enough, so you could say that about yourself, and it has the same idea. Maybe your boss says, hey, we don't have the bandwidth to do this. It just means that we don't have enough resource to do this. We don't have enough energy or enough time to do something. So that's this word can get used in that kind of idea. Now, of course, width comes from the word wide, right? Kwang, right? Wide. How wide is it? Kwan, how wide is it? So band, of course, is like a radio channel, like a band. We talk about radio bands. Anyhow, I think you get the idea. Let's say this together. Bandwidth. Bandwidth. Okay, so they're having bandwidth troubles or issues or problems or challenges after a surge in downloads. Now, of course, download, I think you've all downloaded programs, downloaded photos, downloaded videos. But a surge, we've said this word before. What's surge mean? Rise, but usually means a sudden rise, a sudden increase. It's like if we had a big rainstorm today, you would probably see a surge in water in the rivers here, right? The rivers would start to surge. All this water would suddenly start to flow very heavily, very powerfully down the river. So we can say there's a surge of interest in this new movie, right? There's a surge of applications for this job. It means suddenly there's kind of this great increase. Okay, so let's say it together, surge. Surge. Okay, so there's a surge in downloads as what? As wary Taiwanese endure aftershocks. Now, wary, we've talked about this, I think. What is wary? If you're very wary about something, what would be another word? Yeah, cautious, I think, would be a good word. If you're very wary about something, you're very cautious, okay? So maybe your friend says, hey, you should invest in this new stock. You know, it's going to go up. And you say, I don't know, I'm very wary about that company because I don't think they're going to keep going up, or I think they're not a very good company. So if you're wary about something, you're very extra careful, you're extra cautious about something, okay? So why don't we say together, wary. Wary. Okay, so wary Taiwanese endure, of course, endure means to go through, to take, to stand something, to handle it. Endure aftershocks, okay, from a major quake. Now, aftershocks, of course, I think we've talked about this word before, but of course, the word is what, yuzhen, right? It's not the main earthquake, it's all these aftershocks, these smaller, usually smaller earthquakes that come after the main earthquake. Why don't we say that word as well? Aftershocks. Aftershocks. Endure. Endure. Okay, so let's read this together. A high school student who designed an app that sends earthquake alerts more readily than the Central Weather Administration is facing bandwidth issues. After a surge in downloads, as wary Taiwanese endure aftershocks, let's say it again, endure aftershocks from a major quake on April 3. Okay, it says here the app, and you can see the Chinese name there, which is free on Apple's App Store, has been compared favorably with the National Emergency Alert System, which has remained largely silent to people outside the immediate area of epicenters amid a spate of quakes this month. Okay, so, Apple has this app store. And so this app has been compared favorably with the nation's emergency alert system. If you say it's been compared favorably, what does that mean? What does that basically mean? If something is favorably compared to something else, it means that it's better. Basically, when they compare this app to the government alert system, this one is considered better. It's getting a better review. People like it better. So if you can say something has been compared favorably to something else, it means that when you bijiao, that you compare the two, this other one it's considered better. So let's say when people like to compare things, let's say you don't know if you should buy a Ford or a Toyota, right? And maybe your friend says, oh, well, this Toyota has been compared favorably to the Ford. Means that the Toyota people think the Toyota is better. I'm not actually saying that, but but I'm just saying if your friend might say that. So that's what it means. So why don't we say together, compared favorably with. Compared favorably. Okay, so we could say favorably with or favorably to, either one, okay? So that's all it means. So this app has been compared favorably with the National Emergency Alert System, which has remained largely silent. Okay, Now, what's the word largely mean? Mostly, yes. So we could say this is largely his problem, not my problem. This is largely the reason that this is largely because of, this situation, So largely is just another word for mostly, okay? So why don't we say together largely? Largely. Okay, so the government's alert system has remained mostly silent to people outside the immediate area of the epicenter. Now, I'm sure we've talked about this word before, but epicenter, this word over here, is the center of the earthquake. It's where the earthquake actually happened. Remember 9/21, the epicenter was over there in, what was it, in Nantou in Jiji, right? Or something like that, yeah. What is it? Yeah, right over there. So that was the epicenter of the earthquake. So why don't we say together, epicenter? Epicenter. So it's silent to people. Basically, if you're not near the epicenter, you're outside the immediate area. Now, when we say immediate area, what does that mean? Right, the area very close by. Now, immediate usually means, 立刻, right? Immediately, right? But when we talk about an immediate area, that means the area right next to you. So you could talk about, if we say the immediate area of the library, or the immediate area around the library, maybe it'd be this, park around here and some of the roads nearby. It's right around us, okay? So outside the immediate area of epicenters, amid, now we know amid means in the middle of, amid, in the midst of, okay? A spate of quakes. Now, this word spate, I don't know if we've talked about. What does a spate of something mean? What would be another way of putting that or saying that? Anyone know? Okay, a spate would just mean a lot of something, like a cluster of something, right? A bunch of something, okay? A spate of quakes, so it means a whole bunch of quakes, okay? So, I don't think so, but I'm not exactly sure. This word gets used sometimes, but I don't know what the origin of it is. I haven't heard it being used in sports. But yeah, a spate of quakes means a cluster, a group, yes, a bunch of together. Anyhow, I think you understand, right? A spate. So why don't we say it together? Spate. Spate. Okay. Any questions on this paragraph? Anything? Yes. Maybe, hopefully. I mean, it sounds like he's got a good future. Or, I don't know, maybe he doesn't. He actually might not know much about seismology, but he knows apps. He knows how to. I'm curious to know how he gets the alert, if it's connected to the government alerts. I mean, obviously, the government alert system, they have their own sensors, right? They have their own system. And he can't, I doubt he has developed his own system, but somehow or another, he's getting the information and sending it out immediately to everybody. So I don't know, maybe the article will share that information. Okay, so let's read this. The app, which is free on Apple's App Store, has been compared favorably with the National Emergency Alert System, which has remained largely silent to people outside the immediate area of epicenters amid a spate of quakes this month. Right, okay. Okay, so it says here, the app's developer, Kang Chao, international school student, Lin Ziyou, said that it had garnered about 10,000 downloads before this month, but they have surged to more than 320,000 since the April 3 quake, which measured 7.2 on the Richter scale. Okay, so I don't know where this is interesting. It's a Kangchao International School. I don't know where that is, but anyhow, so he's the developer. That's the person who made it. It says it had garnered about 10,000 downloads. Okay, what does garner mean? We talked about this before. To collect, to get. Simply, you could say to get, right? If you can say during an election, 选举, you can say he garnered most of the votes. It means he got most of the votes or ballots or whatever. Okay, so to garner means to get. You can say, right now, I'm trying to garner his support. I'm trying to get his support. Okay, so this word garner is a pretty flexible word. Why don't we say it together? Garnered. Garnered. So it gotten about 10,000 downloads before this month, but it had surged. There's that word again. It surged. It grew very quickly to more than 320,000. Okay. Now, this earthquake measured 7.2 on the Richter scale. We probably mentioned this before, but Richter scale is that scale that we use around the world to measure the size or the power of an earthquake. There's a word actually we use a lot for earthquakes. When we talk about the power of an earthquake, we often say this word. Yeah. So magnitude, often people say that 7.2 magnitude, or 6.1 magnitude on the Richter scale. So you can say, what is the size or the power of something? You could say the magnitude of this country is amazing, or you can say the magnitude of his achievements. It means the size, the power. So we can use this word magnitude to mean other things, not just earthquakes. We could talk about a person even, or a country, or the size or how big someone's success was. The magnitude of your success. That would be a word. That's an expression I hear sometimes. You can say the magnitude of your success is amazing. It's great. So this word gets used in that way, but we use it for earthquakes too. So why don't we say together magnitude? Magnitude. Okay. Any question? Oh, and let's say this too. This is just a name, but let's say it. Richter. Now this CH as a K sound. Not a ch, but K. So it's Richter. Okay, so let's say it again. Richter. Okay, yeah. Okay, so let's read this. The app's developer, Kangchao International School student, Lin Ziyou, said that it had garnered about 10,000 downloads before this month. But they have surged to more than 320,000 since the April 3 quake, which measured 7.2 on the Richter scale. Okay. It's interesting. I think I've told you many times I really like airplanes, right? So I was listening to a YouTube, if you go on YouTube, there's a lot of these videos of airports showing planes landing and taking off. And I was watching a video showing planes landing and taking off at Songshan Airport, recent video. And I noticed they're listening in the background. You can listen to the radio air traffic controller talking to the pilots. And when they say, instead of saying, here we said 7.2 when the air controller, the air controllers, they tell the airplanes where to go and everything. Instead of saying 7.2, they say 7 decimal 2. Decimal. You know what a decimal is? Yeah, it's like a digit. Sometimes we say digit, but yeah. For example, we might say how many decibels are in that number. So, it means how many places are in that number. So instead of saying 7.2, they say 7 decimal 2 on, when they're giving a radio frequency, which radio's frequency should you call? So I guess maybe if they use the word decimal, you can listen, you can hear it more clearly on the radio. If you said point, maybe it gets confused with something else, because obviously when you're talking to airplanes, you have to be very clear about what you're saying. Everything has to be very, very clear. I have to say, I was listening to the Songshan radio air traffic controller, and they had, it sounded to me, to my ear, it sounded like there was at least 3 air traffic controllers, 1 male and 2 females. But one of the females, I was thinking, she has a really nice voice. So all the pilots must like it whenever they fly in it, because her voice was just very, very pleasant, very calm. Just the way she was talking to these airplanes, these pilots. I thought, oh, she's got a really nice voice. So yeah. The only thing I'm sorry, well, yeah, sure, it's a great airplane. The main thing I'm sorry about is I never got to fly on it. Of course, to fly on the Concorde was very expensive. Does everybody know what the Concorde airplane was? Yeah, very famous because it was supersonic. It could fly between Paris or London and New York. The name of the airplane was Concorde. I think there's an E there on the end of it. And that plane was, most passenger planes are not, sorry, that's an R, supersonic. Okay, does everybody know what supersonic means? Yeah, what is it? Chao-ing shu, right. Okay, yeah, supersonic means it goes faster than the speed of sound, okay? So, I know there's many military, like Kongjun, Air Force, like the F-16 and all these planes, they're supersonic. But it's very unusual or exceedingly very rare. Probably Concorde was really the only normal commercial aircraft, passenger aircraft that was supersonic. Although I hear now they're developing a new airplane that is also supersonic, not the same company, a different company, actually American company, is trying to develop a supersonic passenger plane. And the name of the name of the company is very funny. It's not Boeing, it's not Airbus, it's a company that you'll like. The name of the company is very funny. It's called Boom. And I think, do you know why it's called Boom? Have you ever seen, I don't know if you ever experienced this in Hualien when I was a kid. Sometimes we would be sitting at home and suddenly it would go boom, and the house would shake. And the reason is that's because an airplane was going supersonic. So when an airplane is moving at supersonic speed and it goes over your house, over the building, all you hear is a boom. And everything shakes, the windows shake. And the reason why you don't hear it much anymore, because people don't like it, right? It can actually, if it's too low, it could actually break your windows, because when the airplane is moving so fast, when it breaks, we say to break the speed of sound. When you go faster when you go supersonic, then it creates this boom, the sound, okay? You can, yeah. I don't know if any of you have experienced that, but I haven't seen it in a while. So why don't we say together, supersonic? Supersonic. Okay, yeah. Was it that much? 100,000 US dollars. That's, but for normal flights though, I mean, like everyday flights. Yeah. 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 Right. Yeah. Well, there was an accident too. Remember, there was a big accident in Paris where a Concorde crashed. But yeah, I know it was really expensive. I mean, to fly. Of course, you could fly from New York to Paris or London in 1.5 hours or something like that. It was really fast. So yeah. Okay, so that's a photo caption. It says here, he designed the app using publicly available data online. Lin told reporters on Tuesday at the school's Xiugang campus in New Taipei City's Xindian district. Okay, so so I guess he's using publicly available data online. I didn't know there was such a thing. I didn't know you could get publicly available data on earthquakes for alerts. Okay, so publicly available means that it's anyone can get it, right? It's available to the public, okay? And it's online. Okay, so let's read this. He designed the app using publicly available data online. Let's say those 4 words again. Publicly available data online. Lin told reporters on Tuesday at the school's Xiugang campus in New Taipei City's Xindian district. Okay. Now, I think you know this, but just remind you that with this Hanyu pinyin, X is a sh sound, right? Just like Xi'an, like the city of Xi'an in China is Xian. This is Hanyu pinyin. So sometimes people, especially many American or foreigners, they get confused by this. They don't know how to say it, but it's this Hanyu pinyin. Okay. Whereas, actually, I think this here is what we used to call Tongyong pinyin. So this is a challenge in Taiwan. They never seem to use the same system. Depends if you're Lan Si or Lü Si or whatever. Yeah. Okay. So here it says the app has been praised for its capability to issue warnings seconds before shaking from a distant earthquake. Sorry. To issue warnings seconds before shaking from a distant earthquake reaches the user's location, and for a user-friendly interface that displays information, including a countdown to potential shaking and magnitude predictions. There's that word, magnitude predictions. Okay, so this app is quite unique. It says it's been praised, 赞美. People are praising it for its capability. Now, we've talked about this where we could also say ability, right? It's 能力, right? It's ability or it's capability. Either way, it's probably okay. Let's say capability. Let's say it together. Capability. Capability. Ability. Ability. Now, capability is probably a slightly better word because you can say something is capable of doing something else, right? You can say he is very capable of doing that job. He's very able. Of course, you could also say he's very able to do that job. But capable, I think, is for some reason it has more of a 能力, a bit, yeah. Either way is fine. So capability to what? To issue warnings. Now you send out a warning seconds before what? Before shaking from a distant earthquake reaches the user's location. So this is all one phrase. Before shaking from a distant, far away earthquake reaches the user's location where they are. And, okay, what's the other thing? It's also been praised for a user-friendly interface. Now, what is an interface? Yeah, so basically every day, I guarantee you right now on your phone, you have an interface. What's your interface with your phone? You look at the screen, the 荧幕, right? The screen, and you touch the screen, right? You push buttons on the screen. Or in your computer, your interface is you use your keyboard, and the computer has a screen. It's that channel for connecting with your device, with your phone, with your computer, with whatever, even your car. When we talk about to interface, it means to interact with something. So interface can actually be a 动词. It can also be used, we can say to interface with something or some else, someone. But we often use the word interact with, right? How do you interact with something? You can say, I like to interact with many different kinds of people. But we could also say, I like to interface with many different kinds of people. It means to have a connection with them, to talk to them. That's how we usually interface with each other, right? We talk to each other. But we could also write to each other. We could send each other messages. We could use our phones. Those are all ways to interact or interface with each other. But the word interface often gets used for a device, like a computer or a phone or an app or program. And so if we say a user-friendly interface, it means that this interface is very easy to use. I know that sometimes I have had the problem, and probably you have too, where you buy a program or a device or a machine and you don't know how to use it. It's very difficult. You know, you don't know what to do, or what do I do next, or maybe you make a mistake. You know, it's difficult. It's not user-friendly. Okay, so let's say it together. User-friendly interface. User-friendly interface. Okay, so what does it do? It displays information, including a countdown to potential shaking. Now that's very interesting. I like that, because you know, sometimes when your alert goes off, you're like, okay, is this going to be immediately? Is this going to be like 3 seconds? When's it going to happen? You know, but here they give you a countdown. You know, 1, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. You know, it gives you a countdown to potential shaking. Now, of course, this is potential. We don't know. You can't say exactly what's going to happen, but possible. Potential means possible. Okay. So why don't we say together, countdown, countdown, potential. Okay, and then let's say this word again, magnitude predictions. Magnitude predictions. So all that means is it's going to predict how strong the earthquake is going to be, how powerful the earthquake is going to be. So, you know, so it gives you a countdown to when it might start shaking, then tells you how strong it's probably going to be. Okay, that's pretty impressive for a high school student. I hope somebody gives him a job when he graduates. Okay, so let's read this together. The app has been praised for its capability to issue warnings seconds before shaking from a distant earthquake reaches the user's location. And for a user-friendly interface that displays information, including a countdown to potential shaking and magnitude predictions. Predictions. You know what a predict, we've talked about this before. To predict means what? To say what's going to happen, right? I think we all, well, maybe most of us, wish that we could predict the future, right? What's going to happen in the future, but we usually can't. Well, we can predict something, but it might not come true. I guess the point is, do we predict it accurately or not? So is it an accurate prediction? There's many predictions about the stock market, about the weather, about many things, but the question is, are they accurate predictions? Are they going to happen like they say? Okay. Well, if I did, I'd be famous, right? No, I don't know. Who knows? I think a lot depends on what happens to their leader. You know, I think right now China is run by one person, and so a lot depends on that person, right? Is he going to be around in 10 years? 谁知道? You know, who knows? If it's a different person, who knows? So yeah, I think a lot depends on that. And of course, I can't predict what's going to happen to Xi Jinping. So yeah, who knows? But yeah, so that's a very interesting question. But yeah, people would like to predict what's going to happen in the future. And if you open the newspaper or you go online, you'll see many predictions about things that are going to happen with many different aspects. It was very interesting. Tuesday night, just not today's Thursday. Tuesday night, we invited 美国商会, we invited the French ambassador. I mean, now officially he's not the ambassador, he's the representative, but he's like the French 法国大使. We invited him to Taichung to speak about France-Taiwan relations. And it was a very good speech. And of course, people were asking him about all these things. And he gave good answers, but there were things that he simply said, I don't know, right? I can't answer everything. So, but it's good to... No, he spoke in English. If he spoke in French, almost nobody would understand him. But fortunately, his English was quite good. So, yeah. But we had 80 people there, so it was a big turnout to people who wanted to hear what France had to say. But it's good to see that I got he was pretty strong about expressing the idea that France is increasingly standing, really cares about Taiwan, So he even said that the French Navy, Haijun, is sending more ships to the Taiwan, Haixia, in this area around here. So anyhow, they say they care what happens in Taiwan is very important to France. So yeah. But he said something else that very, very surprised me. I was kind of proud about it. I had no idea. When you read the news, you think everything's China, China, China. But the number one foreign investor in France is still 美国, still the number one foreign investor in France, followed by Germany and the UK. So I was very surprised by that. Everybody thinks, oh, China is the number one investor. So I was very surprised to hear America is still the number one investor, 国外, 投资者 in France. And about several months ago, when we had the Hindu, kind of like their 大使 come to Taichung and speak. Same thing. The number one foreign investor in India is 美国. So it's nice to see America still investing around the world. Yeah. Maybe, yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I told my friends, I've been telling my friends in America, I'm like, this is a good time to come to travel, right? Come to Taiwan, come to Japan. In fact, I was thinking I should go to Japan because right now the Japanese yen is getting close to 160, right? It's crazy. So, yeah. So I don't know, maybe the Taiwan to Japanese yen, is it good for Taiwan also? It's still good for Taiwan also if you go to Japan right now, right? Okay, cheap, yeah. So there you go. You can take your next vacation. Yeah. Okay, so anyhow, it says here, Lin told Taiwan Television News he has long been fascinated by typhoon and earthquake response measures and coding, which he taught himself in junior high school. Okay, so this guy, he's smart. He's a smart kid, smart boy. So he has long been fascinated. Now, when we say long been fascinated, it means I've been fascinated for a long time. Okay, so we can say it that way. You can say, I've long a fan of this band, or this, I've long enjoyed Taiwanese food. Okay, so it means just for a long time. We put that word long in front. So he has long been fascinated. What's fascinated mean? Yeah, interested, but really interested. Okay, did someone, I think someone said passionate. Okay, so if you have a passionate interest in something, you can say he has a passionate interest in music. Okay, so you could say I have a passionate interest. Often when people have a passion for something, it means they really love it. They enjoy it. It's their thing that makes them happy. Okay, so if you're fascinated by something, it means you're not just a little bit interested. You're really interested in something. Okay, so you can say I'm fascinated in dogs or cats or cars. People are fascinated by different things. Okay, so let's say together, fascinated. Fascinated by. Now, if you want to turn that word into a 名词, what does it become? Fascination, right? So it becomes a T-I-O-N, fascination. So why don't we say that word, fascination? Fascination. So you can say, I have a fascination with something, okay? I have a fascination with old cars. I have a fascination with airplanes, right? So this is another way we can say it. Okay, so he has long been fascinated by what? Typhoon and earthquake response measures. Of course, this is not the typhoon earthquake itself, but it's the response. How do you respond to these things? Okay, and coding. Does everybody know what coding is? Well, what's a code? CODE. It's like a 密码 or not even just or it could be more than a 密码. It could be a whole string of letters. Like, during 二次大战, World War II, when we sent messages to each other, we had to use a code, right? So that the enemy could not read your message, right? So you had to send it in code. Now, when you're a kid, sometimes for fun, you come up with a secret code, right? Instead of just saying something to somebody, you find another way of talking or writing something so that nobody else can understand it, right? And it's very fun. People will come up with secret codes for messages. There's okay. I'll just share. This is such a kid thing. This is when I was a kid, people used to joke about something called. This is for children. They called it pig Latin. Latin is, right? They called it pig Latin because, and the way you would use pig Latin, this is the rule. This is for children, of course. Is you take the first the first letter, and you move it to the end, and you add the word a. Okay, so pig becomes igpe. And when you hear that word, it sounds like Latin, right? Okay, so it'd be hard with a word like that, but it would be like, instead of saying passion, or let's say the word passion, you would say ashen pay. Okay, so it was like a way of changing the way you speak, and so it was just a funny way. It was like a joke, but we called it pig Latin. So you could take any word in the English language, like my name is Doug, right? So it would become Ugg Day. Okay, so anyhow, maybe that's a kind of code. Yeah. Anyhow, you don't have to remember this. But there has been very interesting codes. I don't know if there was a movie that came out. I don't know. It was probably about 5-10 years ago, and I saw it in a movie. It's a true story, and actually, this is not children's stuff. This is very serious. But there was a very famous killer in San Francisco, and he was known as the Zodiac Killer. Okay. Yeah, he made there's a movie called Zodiac. Okay, and this killer, he killed many people. He sent coded messages to the police and the media, the newspaper. He sent all these messages in code that would tell them who he was. But this code was very, very hard to crack. Everyone tried to crack this code, and they couldn't figure out. Now, later on, of course, some people think they cracked the code, and they were able to figure it out. And some of the messages were decoded. Now, if you have a coded message and decode means that you figure out the code. But there's someone else used another word that's very good. Another word for code is cipher. And so if you decipher something, it means you have you understand the real meaning. This is a very good word because we can use this word for many different things. For example, if someone's telling you something and you don't understand what they mean, you say, I'm trying to decipher what he's telling me. I'm trying to decipher his real message. What's he really trying to tell me? So this word can actually get used in an everyday way. So if someone's telling you something and you say, I'm really trying to decipher or understand. So this word can be used just as basically for understand something. I'm trying to understand something, because cipher is another word for code, and we say to decode. Now, of course, we could also use this for understanding. I'm trying to decode what he's telling me. So these words are very similar to this idea. But anyhow, if you ever watch this movie it's a very interesting movie. It's got Robert Downey Jr. and several other actors in it. But it's a true story. And I watched something on TV recently, and they're still talking about this guy. They don't know who did it. They're still trying to. They think the guy that did. There's several possibilities of who this person was. Many people think he's already died. He's no longer living. But it was very, very fast. I mean, obviously, it's a terrible thing because this guy was killing people. But he used this code to send messages and say, this is who I am. Here I am. You can catch me. And everyone was trying to decode his messages. Okay, so anyhow, let's read these words together. Decode, decode, cipher, cipher, decipher, decipher. Yeah, this word here, remember this word, decipher. That's a good word. To decipher someone's meaning, to try to decipher what they're saying. Okay, we've never learned that word, but it's a good word. Okay, so anyhow, coding. Sorry, I'm completely off the topic because here, coding means something different. What does coding mean here? This actually has a different meaning to it. It means to write code, like when you write a program, 软体, like you write software, it's written in code, right? If you go and look at your computer and you look at how all those programs work, every program you use on your phone and computer, there's a code behind it. It's lots of numbers and letters, right? And programmers have to program. So coding here is another word for programming. Programming. So of course you have people who are professional programmers, but of course anyone can learn programming. You learn a language, right? So I remember when I was a little kid, I learned a program everyone started with called BASIC, okay? It was a very early program, and then later on there were other programs, like there was one called Cobalt, and now anyhow, there's all these new programs now. So if you learn how to program, you say coding. That's how we say it together. That you learn how to code, means how to write that code. Now, of course, this isn't a secret code. This isn't a children's code. This is a code for the computer, and then the computer understands what to do, yeah. So it's a language. It's like a language, a programming language. Does everybody understand that? Okay. So yeah. But it's very interesting because my friends have been saying recently, many people have been saying, in the future, we might not actually have to learn how to code anymore, because with AI, your interface is very easy. You just tell the computer, you say, I want you to build this. I want you to make this. I want you to do a program. And the computer will go ahead and do it. So you don't have to learn how to code anymore. AI will do it for you. Now, I don't know if that's 100% true, but that's what many people are saying. So anyhow, let's read this together. Lin told Taiwan Television News that, he has long been fascinated by typhoon and earthquake response measures. Okay, and coding, which he taught himself in junior high school. Okay. Yeah, I know a lot of young people like to study coding, or they learn. You can teach yourself how to do it. So he says here, inspiration for the earthquake warning app came when he read about open source software that analyzes publicly available seismic data. He told the Chinese language United Daily News. Okay, we've talked about that word before, inspiration, to inspire. What does that mean? If you get inspiration from something, what does that mean? Yeah, it's like motivation, like dongji, right? It means it's something that makes you want to do something, right? So what can inspire us? Well, someone can give a speech, right? 演讲. Or you can listen to music and it inspires you. Or you watch a movie and it inspires you. Or someone encourages you or praises you. So there's many things that can inspire us. And so that's inspire, okay? But then as a 名词, we say inspiration. I got inspiration from something. Now, of course, it can also be used as a 形容词. You can say this was very inspiring. So it's a inspiring, inspiring. That was an inspiring movie. That was an inspiring song. That was an inspiring speech. Okay? So why don't we say together, to inspire. To inspire. Inspiration. Inspiration. Okay, so for this student, inspiration for this earthquake warning app came from where? From when he read about open source software. Okay, so now 软体, open source software is software that anyone can use and change and program. Anyone here could use it. So it's like the software that everyone is able to use. That analyzes, now what's analyze mean? To what? To, what would be a better word or good word? Analyze, to study? Yeah, to study, to look at. You know, if you analyze something, you look at it very carefully, you study it very closely. So it analyzes publicly available seismic data. So this is data, this is information that is publicly available. It's available to the public. Now, I think we've talked about this. What does seismic refer to? Yeah, referring to earthquakes. Now, you just said, you asked earlier, will he become a seismologist? Okay. Now, a seismologist is someone who studies earthquakes. Okay. So, I hope I spell this right. Okay. So I think I'm spelling that right. Seismologist. Yeah, it's someone who studies earthquakes. I'm sure Taiwan has many seismologists. Okay, so let's say it together. Seismic. Seismic. Seismologist. Seismologist. Okay, so yeah. So basically, he's using this open software, Ranti, that studies, analyzes this publicly available information about earthquakes. Okay. Any questions? Anything? Okay. So let's read this. Inspiration for the earthquake warning app came when he read about open source software that analyzes publicly available seismic data. He told the Chinese language United Daily News. Okay. So the app took 18 months to complete, he said, adding that he watched YouTube videos to help him create it, as at the time he knew nothing about coding for Apple devices. So you see, YouTube helps with everything, right? You can learn how to code, you can learn how to cook a dinner, you can learn how to fix your car, just watch YouTube. Yeah, I tell my friend, I'm serious, I watch way too much YouTube. So yeah, but it is useful sometimes. So here it says the app took 18 months to complete. He watched YouTube videos to help him create this app, as he knew at the time, it means at that time, at the time, he knew nothing about coding. Okay, so here's that word again, for Apple devices. He didn't know how to write code for Apple devices. So yeah. Okay, so that's pretty cool. Let's read this. The app took 18 months to complete. He said, adding that he watched YouTube videos to help him create it, as at the time he knew nothing about coding for Apple devices. Okay. It says here, another difficulty he encountered was a lack of time, as he was studying to get into college while working on the project, he said. The surge in users moved me deeply, he said. I never thought that 320,000 people would download something I made. Okay. Doesn't it say he's a junior high school student? Okay. Huh. Interesting, because it says college. Okay. Well, anyhow. So yeah, another difficulty, we could say another challenge, was a lack of time. Of course, that's a challenge for many of us. Okay. So he says here, the surge in users moved me deeply. So he was 很感动, right? He was very moved. Okay. Okay. So let's just read this, and then we can move on. I think we can move on to another story soon. So let's read this. Another difficulty he encountered was a lack of time. as he was studying to get into college, while working on the project, he said. The surge in users moved me deeply. He said, I never thought that 320,000 people let's say that last part again. 320,000 people would download something I made. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So anyhow, maybe you can check out his app. Yeah. I think, yeah, we've covered everything here. Yeah, now, to me, the next challenge for him, I have a new challenge for him, is put his app in English. If it's in English, then I would download it. So yeah, actually, probably it's okay in Chinese. It's probably pretty simple. I mean, it's not like you probably need a lot of English. So yeah, any questions about this article? Anything? Yeah, it's good to see young people in Taiwan, you know, coming up using their, you know, brains to come up with new ideas like this, and useful ideas too, right? It's better. I think this kind of effort is much better than just making a new TikTok video, right? This is actually useful to people. I don't know if you saw that the U.S. has passed a new bill, and this bill, actually we'll read about this here, but this bill in part has one very interesting part to it. Of course, the part that everybody in Taiwan is noticing is it helps Taiwan, but there's another part that is very, very concerning for many people in America, and that is part of this bill also says that TikTok the parent company has to sell TikTok, I think within 180 days or something like that. I forget, but they have to sell the parent company, the company owns TikTok, has to sell it to somebody else, or it'll be banned. It'll be illegal in the United States. And of course, you know, TikTok is for young people. They're really crazy about it. So, and many people are, how do we say, they're influencers on TikTok. You know what an influencer is, right? We talked about this before. What is an influencer? How do we say it in Chinese? A person. Yeah, kind of like a Wang Hong, but people do it on they have YouTube channels, they have TikTok videos, or Instagram or whatever, IG, you know, but we call them influencers because they influence people. So this is a very common thing. It seems like today, many young people, this is what they want to do. They want to be an influencer, because if you become super popular, you can actually make money from this, right? Sometimes nowadays I talk to a lot of restaurants, well, not a lot, but some restaurants. And when they want to promote their restaurant, they call an influencer to come over and put them on their channel, right? And say, oh, this food is great. It's a wonderful place. I love it. And then what happens? All their followers, well, come over and try that food. And they can make lots of money off of that, right? Because if you're a powerful influencer and somebody wants you to promote their product, well then, yeah, they'll pay for it, right? They'll pay to bring you over. But yeah, so there's TikTok is used by many influencers, and you know, people are worried that if TikTok is banned, they will lose the opportunity to do that. Now, of course, I'm sure if TikTok is banned, I'm sure some other company will come up with something that's very similar to TikTok, right? Somebody else will do something. But yeah, right now there's a concern about China using TikTok to influence Americans, okay? So that's something that people, let's say that word again, influencers. Influencers. Okay. So here it says, U.S. Senate approves bill mandating aid to Taiwan. Taipei's gratitude. President Tsai Ing-wen thanked the U.S. for its support and called for more collaboration to contribute to the peace and stability of the region. Now, U.S. Senate, what Senate is the, what is it called? Sang, in Chinese, how do you say it? Oh, yeah, okay, whatever, yeah. Yeah, it's the Senate has how many members? Does everybody know? 100, yeah. It's always 100. It never changes. Every state has 2 senators. Doesn't matter if you're California or if you're Rhode Island, which is the smallest state. But they all have 2 members. Whereas the House of Representatives has many more members. And the House of Representatives, the number of representatives is determined by how many people live in your state or your area or your district. But the Senate is different. So that's how the 2 kind of balance each other out. Okay. If there's a tie. Yeah, there's a tie. So if the Senate is voting and it's 50-50 in a vote, right? The vice president gets to decide. They put their vote in, and that counts as the next vote. They break. And so what do we say? We call that to break the tie. Okay? Everybody knows what a tie is, right? A tie. Sometimes we say in a 比赛, 运动比赛, we use the word draw. Now this is a 名词, not a 动. Well, you could use it as a 动词 too. You could say the 2 teams drew with each other, or the 2 teams tied each other. Okay, but a tie or a draw means they're the same score. Okay, so how do you break the tie? Okay, now if you watch 足球, maybe you watch the 运动 the 世界杯. In a 世界杯, they break the tie with a PK, penalty kicks to decide. But in the Senate, if there's a tie or between the 2 sides, then this vice president will break the tie and they'll vote. Okay, so everybody understand that? Any questions? Okay, so why don't we say the first word? Senate. Senate. Okay, so they approved a bill. A bill, of course, means a proposal, a plan. It's like a proposed law that mandates aid to Taiwan. Now, what this word mandate is very interesting. We've talked about this before, but what does mandate mean? It's a little bit stronger than that, though. What? Yeah, it's compulsory. It means you have to do something. Okay? So remember the word, the 形容词 is mandatory. Okay? If something is mandatory, it means you must do it. There's no choice. Mandatory. So, Taiwan for young men has mandatory military service, right? If you're 18 years old or above 18 years old, you have to do 1 year, 12 months of military service, mandatory military service. But there's other things too, like if you're on an airplane, there's certain things that are mandatory, like you have to put on your seatbelt, right? You can't walk around the airplane when they're landing or taking off. Those things are mandatory. Okay, so this is a good word. Why don't we say together, mandatory? Mandatory. So if we say mandate something, it means you must do that. Okay, it's a law. It's a rule. You have to do it. Okay, so this bill, this new law, actually the Senate approves the bill, and then the last step is the president will sign the bill. Now this, should be no problem. So it goes through both houses of the U.S. Congress, 美国大会, and then after it passes, the president signs the bill, and it's a law. So it mandates aid to Taiwan. Okay, so it says here, why don't we say together, mandate? To mandate. Okay, so Taipei's gratitude. What's gratitude mean? Thankfulness, yeah. If you say, I express my gratitude to him for his help, I feel gratitude about, what would be a word? There's another word that's very similar to gratitude. It sounds the same, but what is it? Starts with a G-R-A-T, grateful. Yeah, sorry. So if you can say he's grateful for something. It means he's thankful for something. I am grateful for my parents, or to my parents. You could say either way, grateful for or to something. Okay, so he's grateful. He shows gratitude. Okay. Okay, so why don't we say together gratitude, gratitude, grateful, grateful. Yeah, it just means thankfulness or thankful. Okay, so Taipei's gratitude. President Tsai Ing-wen thanked the U.S. for its support and called for more collaboration. What's collaboration? What would be another word very similar to collaboration? Cooperation, right? 合作, right? So cooperate, collaborate means to work together. If you can see this word here, you get a clue for what this word means, because what? Co means what? Together, right? What do we have here? Labor. Labor. Labor means to work, right? So if we work together, we co-labor. So it's collaboration, okay? So yeah, to collaborate or collaboration. Collaboration, of course, is a 名词. Okay, so why don't we say it together first as a 动词? This would be a R-A-T-E, to collaborate. To collaborate. Collaboration. Collaboration. Okay, so they are calling for more collaboration to contribute to add to the peace and stability. Of course, stability means like 稳定 or, stable of the region. Okay, so let's read the article here. It says, the U.S. Senate on Tuesday approved $95 billion in aid to Taiwan, Ukraine, and Israel, with a package of bills containing the funding expected to be signed into law after press time last night. Now, press time means when the newspaper goes to the printer or goes out. Okay, press time. Okay, so they approved 95 billion. That would be what? 950亿美金. Okay. Is it 950亿, I think. Yeah. Because 1亿 would be 1 billion would be 10亿. Yeah. Okay. So in aid to Taiwan, Ukraine, and Israel, okay, with a package of bills, this is a whole group of bills, of laws, it has the funding. Of course, funding means the money expected to be signed into law. Now, this is where the president has to sign his name and agree to the law. Now, in America, and I think we've talked about this before, the president actually has a choice. If the president says no, and he refuses to sign the bill, there's a word we use. I don't know if you know this word. What? Well, yeah, but generally we just use the word veto. Veto means the president says, no, I will not sign the bill, and then the bill has to go back to Congress, and they have to pass it again. Now, if they pass it again, then it doesn't matter. It still becomes law. We say they override the veto. So the president has a chance one time to say no, and then if it goes through again, then it still becomes the law. So veto, the reason I share the word veto is because you can use this word in normal everyday life. So let's say you're with your company, and your company decides, maybe your colleagues decide this is what they want to do, but your boss vetoes the idea. Or even you could veto the idea. Maybe you're part of a team and you say, no, I refuse. I'm not going to do this. I'm going to veto that. I'm not going to go along with you. So we can use the word veto in this way too, in everyday life. Okay. So why don't we say a word together? Veto. Veto. Yeah. And it's a very strange sounding word. I'm not quite sure. I'm not sure where it comes from. I'm sure it has some origin. So yeah. Okay, so let's read this together. The U.S. Senate on Tuesday approved $95 billion. Let's say it again, $95 billion in aid to Taiwan, Ukraine, and Israel, with a package of bills containing the funding expected to be signed into law after press time last night. Okay. Ukraine got, I think Ukraine got 60 billion. Yeah, I think Ukraine got 60. So that'd be 600亿. And I believe Taiwan got 8 billion. Yeah, which would be 80亿. Yeah, still a lot of money. I wish I had $1 billion. Yeah. Okay, so here it says, the Senate passed the bills in a 79-18 vote after the U.S. House of Representatives on Saturday approved the package, which U.S. President Joe Biden said he would sign. So he's not going to veto it, he's going to sign it. Okay, so let's read this. The Senate passed the bills in a 79-18 vote after the U.S. House of Representatives on Saturday approved the package, which U.S. President Joe Biden said he would sign. Tonight, a bipartisan majority of the Senate joined the House to answer history's call at this critical inflection point, Biden said. Okay, now we've talked about this word before, but what does majority mean? Over half. What would be the opposite of majority? Minority. Okay, so we have majority and we have the minority. Oops. Now, of course, when we talk about minority groups, in society, it might be a smaller group of people. It could be, I don't know, like often we talk about racial minority groups. Taiwan, I guess the only racial minority group we have in Taiwan would be considered maybe the 原住民, right? But in America, we have many minorities, Asian Americans, African Americans, Hispanic American. I mean, there's many kinds of minorities. But yeah, it's it's a smaller group. So why don't we say together majority, majority, minority, minority. Okay, and so here we're talking about 美国大会. Bipartisan means what? Two parties, right? Remember, America, the two biggest parties are the Republican Party, 共和党, and the Democratic Party, the 民主党, right? So if it's bipartisan, it means they agreed. It's people from both parties. I mean, they didn't all agree, but people from both parties supported this, okay? Which in America today is very unusual because it seems like the Republicans and the Democrats don't agree about anything these days, but they do agree on this. Okay, and which is important. That's good. It's good for Taiwan too. So let's say together, bipartisan. Bipartisan. I just want to show you, in case you didn't notice, bi means two, right? And partisan comes from the word party, right? Dang, right? Partisan, like we talk about the Democratic Progressive Party or the KMT, which is a party. Okay, so they joined the House, the House of Representatives, to answer history's call. So what he's saying when he says to answer history's call, what President Biden is saying is that this is a very historical moment. This is important in history. History is calling us. That's what he's saying. What the idea is just that this is very important, okay? So to answer history's call at this critical means what? Important, crucial, critical, important, inflection point. Now this is a word, this it's an expression that we use, but it's not an everyday expression. Basically, it's hard to explain, but basically I'll explain. An inflection point means that this is a turning point. This is a key junction. Let me use that word. I'll type it for you. If you say this is we could say, sometimes we say it's like a crossroads. It's like a junction. These words are the same meaning, actually. You know, like a 十字路口, right? It's like a crossroads. When you're going down the road and you get to a 十字路口, you can go left or right or straight. You have to choose which direction you're going to go in. So you can say this is an important junction or juncture in history, or important crossroads or historical crossroads. We have to decide which way we're going to go. And which way we go will make a big impact. You know, it's very important. It can have a big influence or big impact on the future, on history. Okay? So when he says a critical inflection point, that's what he means. This is an important point of decision. We have to decide which way we want to go. Does everybody understand that? Okay. Let's say those two words together. Crossroads. Crossroads. Junction. Junction. So, you know, if someone says, well, how's this year going? You can say, well, this year is going to be I'm facing a very important crossroads in my life. Okay, or a very important junction in my life. It means I have to decide, you know, what am I going to do? Am I going to, you know, some people say, well, I'm going to change my job, or I'm going to retire, or, you know, whatever. There's many these kinds of things. Okay, so let's read this together. Tonight, a bipartisan majority. Let's say those two words again. Bipartisan majority. In the Senate, join the House to answer history's call. At this critical inflection point, Biden said. Okay. That's a photo. Okay, so it says here, okay. It says here the legislation would send $26 billion in wartime assistance to Israel and humanitarian relief to the citizens of Gaza, and $8 billion, I think we can just say dollars, we don't have to say US dollars, to counter Chinese threats to Taiwan and in the Indo-Pacific. Okay, so here it says $26 billion in wartime assistance. Of course, wartime is, right now, Israel is fighting, you know, they're in a war with Hamas. And recently they've been kind of in a war with Iran too. And humanitarian relief to its citizens of Gaza. Now, Gaza, I think you know, is where the Palestinian territory there. Now, this is a good word. What does humanitarian mean? Yeah, basically it means to help people. Okay, so if you say a humanitarian organization, or humanitarian assistance, or humanitarian, I made a humanitarian gesture, it means something that helps people. Yeah, charitable, but charity doesn't have to be people, right? It could be animals, it could be other things. But I'll tell you where, actually, it's, you could say charitable, but a word that actually doesn't have to be people either, but it's similar, is the word humane. Okay, if you are humane, what does that mean? Or you act in a humane way. Yeah, it means you're trying to help people. You're trying to treat people with kindness. You know, someone who is humane is usually someone who is kind and helpful to other people. So, you know, there's a very famous organization around the world called the Humane Society. Has everybody heard of this? It's very famous. I'll tell you why it's famous. Because you see it every time. Every time you go watch a movie, at the very end of the movie, there'll be a little statement that says, no animals were harmed in this movie, according to the Humane Society. Yeah. So basic Humane Society is a global society that protects animals. 保护动物. And so for movies, they have to make sure that no animals were hurt when they made this movie. And the Humane Society will certify that. They will say, yes, we checked and no animals were hurt. So they also, if you watch at the very end of the movie, usually they'll have a statement that says the Humane Society says that no animals were hurt. It's funny because I see this statement on every movie. Even if there's no animals in the movie, they still put that statement there. So yeah. So why don't we say together humane? Humane. Right. So we say it's important to act in a humane way, or he acted humanely as a 副词 with an ly, humanely. So humanitarian again means in this word, when we say humanitarian though, this refers only, I'm pretty sure it's only for people, for helping other people, to assist people, to help people, to provide for people. So why don't we say together humanitarian? Humanitarian. Okay, so it's humanitarian relief. Means help, assistance to citizens of Gaza, to the people who live in Gaza. Okay, and then it says here $8 billion to what? To counter Chinese threats. Now, if you counter something, what does that mean? To face, to oppose, to what? Yeah, to act against, okay, to act against Chinese threats to Taiwan and in the Indo-Pacific. So technically, this $8 billion is not only just to Taiwan, it's also to threats to also in the Indo-Pacific. So I think some of that money could also go to other countries like perhaps the Philippines that is facing some of these threats. But Taiwan seems to be in the Indo-Pacific, Taiwan is the main focus of this money. Okay, so let's read this together. The legislation would send $26 billion in wartime assistance to Israel and humanitarian relief. Let's say it again. Humanitarian relief to citizens of Gaza. And $8 billion to counter Chinese threats to Taiwan and in the Indo-Pacific. Of course, Indo-Pacific means in-Tai, right? You hear that word a lot. Okay. It says here, U.S. officials said that about $1 billion of the aid package could be on its way shortly, with the bulk following in coming weeks. Okay, so there's a couple expressions here. $1 billion of this aid package could be on its way. When you say something's on its way, what does that mean? It's coming. If you ask your friend, sometimes I should say often I'm late, and my friend says, "Are you on your way?" Or you say, "I'm on my way. I'm coming. I'll be there soon. I'm on my way." It means I'm heading there. Okay, so it could be on its way shortly. Now, what's shortly mean? Quickly. Okay, very soon. You can say, "I'll be there shortly." Means I'll be there soon. Okay. So why don't we say together, shortly? Shortly. Okay, it says with the bulk following in coming weeks. What does bulk mean? The majority of it, the most of it. Yeah, majority would, I guess we could say. If you buy something in bulk, I think in Chinese the word isn't it 批发, right? Yeah. So like you go to Costco, 好事多, often you have to buy things in bulk, right? You can't just buy one candy. You have to buy a box of candy, right? You can't just buy, one thing of toothpaste. You have to buy a package of toothpaste, okay? So we say we buy things in bulk, or we make a bulk purchase. It means a whole cluster, a whole group of something. But here, of course, it means the majority, okay? The most of, the bulk of this is coming is coming behind in coming weeks. So let's say a word together, bulk. Bulk. Now, if something is very bulky, what does that mean? Yeah, it takes up a lot of space. It's big. Sometimes it means it's difficult to move. You know, if someone gives you a bulky package and you're like, I'm sorry, I can't carry this. I'm on my motorcycle. I have no room for it. It's too difficult. It's too bulky. Okay. Or if you're traveling on the airplane, sometimes people have bulky luggage, right? There's too much. You have to check it in because there's just too much. One thing I hate is when people carry bulky luggage onto the airplane, right? They don't check it in. They try to carry it and then they try to shove it in the overhead bins and it doesn't fit and then it becomes mafan for everybody. Okay, so anyhow. Okay, so let's read this. U.S. officials said that about $1 billion of the aid package could be on its way shortly, with the bulk following in coming weeks. Okay. So it says here, in Taipei yesterday, President Tsai Ing-wen thanked the U.S. for its support, including the Senate's action in a meeting with a U.S. delegation. Okay, I don't think we have to read that. It's delegation, of course, is an official group, right? That's a photo. So here it says, let's keep going. It says, Taiwan will continue to work with the U.S. and other countries to bolster the pan-democratic alliance and create global prosperity and stability, Tsai told the delegation at the presidential office. Now, we've talked about this word before, but what does the word bolster mean? To strengthen, to support, right? If something you want to make something stronger, you bolster it. Now, I know recently in Hualien, you know, with these earthquakes, sometimes they had to bolster a building because it looks like it's going to fall over or it's damaged, right? So we have to bolster the structure. Let's say it together. Bolster. 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 Now, you can bolster non-physical things, like bolster support for somebody, right? We want to bolster his support. Okay, so it's another. Now, here's what it says, the Pan-Democratic Alliance. Now, alliance, of course, is a group of friends, right? Allies. A-L-L-I-E-S. Ally, or A-L-L-Y is your friend. One. Ally means your 朋友, you're someone who's working together with you. So an alliance is like almost like a league, like a 联盟, like a group of people. So what does pan-democratic mean? When we use the word pan, what does that mean? Whole, yeah, together. So if we say Pan-Asia, what does that mean? All Asia. There used to be a very famous airline called Pan American Airlines. Yeah, because it meant that airline originally flew up and down the Americas, not just 美国, but 北美洲, 南美洲, 中美洲. So we call it Pan America, all the Americas. Okay. Now, of course, Pan American Airlines later flew all over the world, even Taiwan. I remember they used to fly to Taiwan. It's a legendary airline. Yeah. Unfortunately, they went out of business. But yeah, you know, the beginning of the end for Pan American Airlines is when they sold all their Asia routes, you know, all their 亚洲太平洋 routes to 联合航空公司, United Airlines. They bought all those routes from Pan American, and then little by little, Pan American Airlines got smaller and smaller and smaller, and then it disappeared. Yeah. But yeah. So anyhow, it's pan-democratic means an alliance between different democracies, democratic countries or democracies working together, okay, to create global prosperity and stability. And we all know this word, but what is prosperity? If someone is prosperous, what does that mean? They're rich. Well, it doesn't mean they're necessarily, well, I guess it's kind of like rich. but it means you have a lot, right? Now, it doesn't mean you don't have to be prosperous in money. You could be prosperous in happiness, right? Or what you own or your family or whatever. But usually prosperity is related to money or in economics. So prosperity means, that's, every year at 农历过年, we wish everybody a prosperous year, right? Okay, so why don't we say together, prosperity. Prosperity. And of course, stability means it's stable. It's the opposite of 乱, right? Stability. Let's say it too. Stability. Okay, so let's read this together. Taiwan will continue to work with the U.S. and other countries to bolster the pan-democratic alliance. Let's say it again. Pan-democratic alliance. And create global prosperity, and stability. Tsai told the delegation at the presidential office. Okay. So here it says, Tsai thanked the delegation, which comprises U.S. Representatives Lisa McClain, Dan Kildee, and Mark Alford, for their efforts to advance legislation that would support Taiwan's participation on the international stage. Now, when we say the international stage, what does that mean? I mean, is it a real stage? What are we talking about? This word here. Well, what's a stage, first of all? Yeah, platform, 平台, right? That's 平台, yeah. But we could say international stage, international platform. Another word we use a lot for in this way, we say the international arena. Does everybody know what an arena is? Taichung is going to build a kind of arena. What is it? 小巨蛋, right? Okay. Arena. But Taichung also already kind of has an arena. The Zhouji Bangqiu Chang is a kind of arena. That's a type of arena, right? It's a place where lots of people. An arena doesn't have to be covered. It could be open, right? So it's like another word for arena, of course, is stadium. This is the word we use for the, Zhouji Bangqiu Chang. We say stadium. But arena might be more like, I think arena is more commonly it's covered, but it doesn't have to be covered. Anyhow, we often talk about the international arena. It's like a place where basically the international stage, the place where international countries work with each other and talk to each other and have relationships with each other. So they support Taiwan's participation on the international stage. So that might mean international organizations, international agreements, international cooperation. Anything like that would be on the international stage. Okay? So let's say it together. International stage. International arena. Okay. So, yeah. So anyhow, she's thanking them for, now it says here, this U.S. delegation comprises, what's another word for comprises? What, sorry? Contains, or we could say made up of. Okay. Who's in this group? It comprises these three people. Okay. So you could say this comprised of, or comprises, or simply comprises. Often we say comprised of, or comprises, either way. Okay, of these three people. They're all members of Congress. Okay, for their efforts, for their work to advance means to promote, to push legislation, new laws that would support Taiwan's participation. Okay, let's read this. Tsai thanked the delegation, which comprises U.S. Representatives Lisa McClain, Lisa McLean, Dan Kildee, and Mark Alford for their efforts to advance legislation let's say it again, advance legislation that would support Taiwan's participation on the international stage. Okay. She also thanked the U.S. House of Representatives for its work to advance the Indo-Pacific Security Supplemental Appropriations Act, which would allocate funding for continued Taiwan-U.S. collaboration. Now, this is a very long name, but this is an act, a bill, a law. It says Indo-Pacific Security Supplemental. Now, if you supplement something, we talked about this before. What does that mean? You add something more. So I'm sure some of you, every day you take health supplements, right? Now, I know on TV they advertise this every single day. There's companies like, what's that company? They sell supplements for men and women. It's always on TV. They 广告. What's the name of that company? It's an American company. Centrum. Yeah. You see, I see their ads on TV all the time for men and women, but that's a supplement, right? They get it's vitamin, vitamins, and you take it and it makes you more healthy, hopefully. Okay, so we call that a supplement, a health supplement. So why don't we say together, supplement. Supplemental. Okay, now appropriation simply means to spend money. If you appropriate money, you're going to spend more money. So of course means supplemental means like extra or added. Appropriation, spending. So an appropriation is like spending. Yeah. So you can say they appropriated this money, or they're making an appropriation, means they've decided to spend this money, which would what? Allocate. Now we've talked about this too again. What does allocate mean? Distribute, to hand out, right? If you can say, I'm going to allocate this money to buy a new car. I'm going to allocate this money to invest in stocks. It means where am I going to put it? Where am I going to designate it? So that's a good word. The other word, I think I've shared this with you before, is to designate. It means to say where something is going to go, to allocate, to designate, to assign something, to put it there, okay? So why don't we say together, allocate, designate. Right, so again, it means this is going to go there, or that's going to go there. Where's it going to go? So it's going to allocate funding or money for continued Taiwan-U.S. collaboration. So, okay, so let's read this and then we'll be done for today. She also thanked the U.S. House of Representatives for its work to advance the Indo-Pacific Security Supplemental Appropriations Act, which would allocate funding for continued Taiwan-U.S. collaboration. Collaboration. Right. Okay. Yeah. Cooperation is just a real general word. We use it for people and everything. Collaboration has maybe a more of a official sound to it. Well, it depends how it's used. Because you could say he's a collaborator with me on this job or this project. So it doesn't have to mean a traitor. It could mean anyone who's Yeah. You could say he's an enemy collaborator. Yeah, then it means he's working with the enemy. But yeah, collaborate is a very general word. I think both those words are similar. You can use them in many ways. Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, I think it's good. I mean, it's interesting to see. It's good to see that countries like the U.S. and France and other friends of Taiwan are, stepping up to help Taiwan. Okay, good. So anyhow, that's all we have time for. So, stay dry. Don't get shaken up too much by these earthquakes, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.
好，各位好，今天是4月哈，那4月最后一堂课呢，所以又到时候麻烦大家帮我做一下问卷，问卷在这边，那帮我填一下。那个地点如果有问题的话，就是填那个台中美国资料中心那个。好，那其他就是大家自己的意见可以自由的填写。那填写完呢，我这边也